everybody only talks digital these days. So what's your cost per acquisition? It's the cost per click plus the the conversion rate per click gets you times the conversion rate per click or whatever gets you your cost per acquisition. Well, isn't it cheaper to retain your existing clients? And I guarantee you $3.25 is way less than a cost per acquisition.
Welcome to Show Me the Nuggets, where each week Joe chats with world-class entrepreneurs to find out the key principles, strategies, and processes that lie behind their outstanding achievements. Now, your host, the no bullshit serial entrepreneur, Joe Troyer.
Hey everybody, it's Joe Troyer, and welcome to another episode of Show Me the Nuggets. Today we have on a gentleman I just started following, David Wachs. I'm super excited to bring you guys up to speed on what David is doing, and also to pick his brain a little bit on how he grew a business that has grown by over 300% year over year. So David, your background, you're from Phoenix. You got some software entrepreneurship and automation in your background, and you're running a company right now called Handwritten. Give us a little info on Handwritten.
Sure. And Joe, thank you so much for having me on. Handwritten is I think, a very unique company, but what we are trying to make the process of sending handwritten notes, or at least perceived handwritten notes, as easy as sending an email or a tweet or anything else. The reason I got in this space is prior to Handwritten, I ran a text messaging company back before really that area got crowded, but and we would send 1 million messages a day for Abercrombie and Fitch, Toys R Us, Sam's Club, Office Max, these huge IKEA, these huge brands. And what I realized is we're all getting inundated by all these texts and emails and tweets and Slacks and Facebook notes and Teams messages and everything else. We're getting overloaded with electronic communication. But what I also realized is people, when they get a handwritten note, not only is it opened and read, but it is often kept and savored and put on display. So what I wanted to do was figure out a way to leverage that emotional connection and send and allow people to send out handwritten notes when otherwise they couldn't or wouldn't. So in my case, I was lazy, and I would end up with birthday cards and thank you notes in my laptop bag, and I just never get around to sending them. And then they get bent up, or I wouldn't have a stamp or wouldn't have paper or a pen, and I wouldn't send them out, so they'd get left behind. But I thought, gee, if I could automate this, this could be a thing. So that's what we did 7 years ago, back in 2014, is I started the process of automating handwritten notes. Now we have a full platform that allows users to use our API, Salesforce.com integration, HubSpot integration, our website, Zapier, Integromat, all these different ways, iPhone app, Android app, whatever, to send handwritten notes out at a cadence that makes sense for them. And so that's the software component. And then the hardware component is we currently have 170 robots that we build here in our facility in Phoenix. Each robot, that's what I have on the fake background behind me. It's a picture of our facility. We have each robot holds a real pen. It's a Pilot G2 ballpoint pen. You can pick them up at Staples or Office Max, whatever. And then those notes are written out in the station on the stationery of your choice, in the handwriting style of your choice, and then mailed within 1 business day. So we are the largest in the world doing this. That's not saying much. It's a very small industry, but we're the largest in the world by an order of magnitude or more, doing about 10,000 notes a day, give or take.
Beautiful. Seems like you guys have a really easy business model too in terms of pricing, right? It's flat rate plus postage. Is that right?
Well, it tiers. So you could go on our website, $3.25 plus postage, you're out the door. Or if you want a custom card, and we run our own digital press. So if you wanted a card with your logo on it or a folded, whatever, then that's slightly more because it's more labor on us. But then if you want to prepay a package of 500 cards or 1,000 cards, you could get a discount. If you want to join our subscription plan, which is growing because you plan on sending 5 cards a month or 25 cards a month every month, our subscription plans make a lot of sense. And there's discounts available there too. So worst case scenario, assuming you go on our website, send 1 card, full rate, it is $375 for a custom card plus postage.
Gotcha. Cool. Yeah, super simple. So what do you find are the top use cases of your guys' handwritten cards?
Great question. Number one is thank you cards, which is, I think, the best use case, period. And the reason is I think as a society, especially Americans, we don't thank people. We have a very entitled viewpoint. We just, oh, you bought from me, great. Here's your product, adios. But so having a full stop thank you of just thanking somebody for their purchase is very powerful. We could get into that later if you want. But the number one use case is thank you. Number two is birthday card, Christmas card. We just finished our holiday period, and we sent 350,000 orders just over that period. Thank you or holiday is quite important. We're doing some really interesting win back scenarios. We're also doing some just experiential, if you join our program, which I guess is a thank you card, but really, welcome to the club, that type of thing.
Yeah.
We see, like, we have a YouTube show, one of the largest morning YouTube shows that uses us. And if you sign up to their fan club, you get a handwritten note from the YouTube posts. And a lot of people are tweeting that or Instagramming it. So it's creating a viral aspect too. But those are the main use cases, really. Thank you for your purchase. Thank you for becoming a customer, win back, birthday, holiday.
Yeah, I love that. I was listening to a podcast this morning, and the guy was talking about how they took their churn rate every month on their subscription from 18% to 3% a month. And he said basically one of the big things was the thank you. And was kind of the check-ins and personalizing those check-ins. So that they didn't feel automated. And I definitely think, David, that this could be a great strategy to help people with churn and to, help people know that you're thinking of them and that you care about their account and your relationship, no matter what kind of business you're in.
Yeah. We have clients, just to give you a few examples. One is a piano tuner. I love this example because he's only in your house once a year. Your piano stays tuned for a year. So he goes in your house, tunes your piano. A year later, he sends you a handwritten note automatically after tuning your piano. He's set up with his calendaring system to do that. A year later, when he returns to your house, that handwritten note is still sitting on the piano. So not only is it open, not only is it read, but it is put on display in what, when I was growing up as a kid, my parents called the fancy room, the room that you're not allowed to eat in, and maybe there's plastic on the couch or whatever, but it's the fanciest room in the house, their most prized room. And then the note is on your most prized possession in that prized room for a year. And every time you go and use your lovely piano, you see that note and think, gee, this guy was really nice to send me that note. I mean, think about the brand, the impression value of that. It's huge. And a lot of people say, well, what do you do in your thank you notes? Or, why do you send thank you notes? And I say it's a full stop thank you. That's a term I want to coin because everybody's looking for ROI, right? ROI. Well, thank you note should just be thank you, and you'll get the ROI later. And if you're asking for ROI, you're kind of asking the wrong question. That said, the ROI is there, such as with the piano tuner. We work with an online furniture brand that ships you furniture to put together. They have people calling into their customer support crying because they received a handwritten note. I think a lot of that has to do with COVID and the impact of isolation and loneliness. But sure, I don't think you can overstate the value of a handwritten note. It just has so much impact these days and really sets you apart from the 140 emails the average person receives a day in an office, and they spend 24% of their time just managing their email. Sending a handwritten note avoids all that and really gets to their heart.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, think about an easy way to stand out, right? Standing out should get you an ROI, in my point of view. And then long term, you're right. Like the piano tuner, if just once a year he sent a follow-up card, hey, I haven't heard from you yet. It's about time to get your piano tuned again. I mean, how could you not get an ROI on that $3.75 mail piece? Right?
Exactly. Yeah. And, people spend, what's your cost per client acquisition? If we're talking digital, everybody only talks digital these days. So what's your cost per acquisition? It's the cost per click plus the the conversion rate per click gets you times the conversion rate per click or whatever gets you your cost per acquisition. Well, isn't it cheaper to retain your existing clients? And I guarantee you $3.25 is way less than a cost per acquisition. So, we have automotive dealers that used to send out printed letters and then switched to handwritten letters. And those handwritten letters generate 23 times the response rate as printed letters, 23 times. And when you can consider the cost difference, handwritten notes are more expensive. For one, we print on nice stationery versus the printed letter is just the stationery, and it's typically junk, a thin sheet of paper. We're printing on nice stationery, then writing on that. So we're always going to be more expensive, and then we put a real stamp on it and all the rest. We're always going to be more expensive, but when you take into account the cost difference, we're still 7 times greater ROI. So yeah, we have outsized returns compared to other forms of communication.
That's awesome. So I think this is definitely a no-brainer for any marketing agency. You got clients, you got prospects, you should be trying to differentiate yourself from everybody else in the marketplace. But I think as well that this is a great potential service and kind of referral mechanism for you to give to each and every one of your clients, right? And to help them set up in their business. This should be a no-brainer. So at the beginning, we talked about, David, that you guys have catapulted here and you guys have really grown by 300% year over year since inception. I'm curious, if you kind of zoom out or you pull back a little bit, what would you say is kind of the 80-20 of that impressive year over year growth?
Yeah. So 300% year over year is a little bit deceptive. I think you're going off the Inc. 500. So It's their way of measuring is 300% over 3 years. So we've been growing at about 100% a year or whatever, which I'm still happy with. 300% would be better. This year we grew at 80%, but if you look 3 years past, it's more than 300%. But what do I think is the cause of that? I think one of the big, there's several. Number one, customer service, attracting and retaining our own customers is number one, and really offering phenomenal customer service. I think that's a huge thing. On our website, we have a money back guarantee. We have people, which sometimes gets taken advantage of. I don't want to list ways to take advantage of it, but people do take advantage of it, and we kind of swallow our, bite our lip and let them do what they're going to do, because it's more important to us to have a money back guarantee. So customer service, number one. Number two is obviously we have to have the best quality of offering out there. I think our website is the best website out there, which is kind of our brand. It's not like people are driving up to the Handwritten building. They go to our website. So we have to have the best website out there, and we're currently revamping that. It's been a year-long process. Hopefully it comes out soon. So that whole thing, the user experience of using our system. The third thing I think is really the fact that we've designed ourselves to be a platform, which not everybody can do. But when I designed Handwritten, I did not design a website. I designed a platform. And what I mean by that is we were API first approach, so that we could hang a website off of it. We could hang an iPhone app. We could hang Zapier, Integromat, Salesforce, Shopify, all these ways to connect to your systems so that we are plumbing. We're not razzle dazzle. My last company, we did a lot of, you kind of break your business down into transactional or kind of plumbing and then campaign, right? Like you have your new store opening campaign and you get all these advertisers and marketers involved, and they come up with that campaign, and wow, there's a lot of money there. Let's blow it out. Boom, done, which is great. And I know you communicate with those people and that's wonderful. But I think the ongoing CRM aspect, the plumbing part is really important to grow a growing brand. And because then you don't have to have the spin on the brain to figure out, okay, what are we going to market to this month? What are we doing that now? We sold this last month. What are we going to sell this month? We have to create something that's just runs. And that's why we're kind of API first, is we just want to be plumbing that just runs, set it and forget it, as Ron Popeil would say. So that's really what we've done. And integrating with Zapier has been huge. Integrating with Salesforce.com has been huge. Just allowing people to use us how they want to use us and not forcing them to come back to the Handwritten site to do what they need to do.
Yeah, I see you guys have a ton of integrations, and I definitely think, getting into somebody's plumbing, so to speak, like you said, or part of the process of every new customer, every third customer, or whatever, you guys are part of that process. You guys grow through osmosis as each and every one of your customers grows. So definitely love that.
Yeah, like the other day, my insurance broker who sells us our health insurance called us up and he says, I've been wanting to use you, but then I saw our insurance CRM system has an integration and they were talking about integrating with Handwritten. So now they're advertising for us, right? They've got this huge insurance platform CRM system that is used by insurance brokers, and they're advertising, sending cards via us. Like, that's awesome. That's the viral effect that comes from being a platform. So yeah, that's we want much more of that.
I love that. It looks like from an organic and Google ranking standpoint, you guys do very well as well. Kind of what are the top channels for you guys besides integrations?
Well, we do advertise on Google quite a bit. We've slowed down, or I think even temporarily stopped, our Facebook. The way I see the difference is Facebook is awareness. You're driving, and this is nothing new. You probably know this 10 times better than I do, but you're driving, you're kind of boiling the ocean, hopefully targeting specific people, but boiling the ocean, trying to drive awareness to then come to you. Versus Google, people are looking for this service and they find you. So Google ads are very big. We also do a ton of content marketing. We use a service called Market Muse, which helps us define our content briefs for our writers. And then we put out a piece of content every day, 5 days a week. So that's been big. We just try to make sure we're writing out there. So I write for Inc. magazine. I have guest blogs on other blogs.
Yep.
It's all that. It's a huge content marketing strategy.
Gotcha. Yeah, you guys are doing really well. I see you guys rank at #1 in Google for handwritten cards. So kudos to you.
Yeah, we're trying.
Yeah, that's awesome. And definitely something that our users and people that follow us definitely subscribe to is Google Organic, and pushing that. Nothing can beat that really long-term ROI from organic if you can get there. So kudos to you. I want to jump back a little bit. We focus mostly on Handwritten so far. Can you tell us a little bit more about Sell It and kind of maybe your journey to exit? One of the things that we as marketers and agency owners love to help our clients with, and we like to do as well, is build with the intent to sell, build with the intent to exit. And whenever I have an entrepreneur on the line that has actually exited a company, I like to make sure we ask at least a couple of questions down that kind of train of thought or topic.
Yeah. So from early on, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Back when I was a little kid, I would take my brother's red wagon, his little Jeffrey wagon it was called, and I'd fill it up with whatever my mom bought at Costco or Price Club, I guess, at the time. And then I'd go door to door selling it. And then if there was nothing to sell, if I didn't have anything from Costco that day, there was one time where I took the family first aid kit, I put it in the wagon, I went door to door. I was like 4, or 5. Back then, kids could run free. And I'd knock on doors and say, excuse me, is there an emergency going on? And they'd say, no. They'd say, okay, I'll come back later. I was trying to sell anything, including emergency care. So when I went to college, and I actually started my first business in high school, building computers. I was a huge nerd, but this is before Michael Dell really kind of changed that model. Back then, you would go to little stores in your strip mall and they would build a computer for you. I worked for one of those and I started my own while in high school. And then I went off to college and I did a business engineering degree because I wanted to eventually start my own business. And then with engineering, I had to choose which concentration or which major. And I chose computer science, not because I love computers that much, I did, but it was more because I thought it'd be easier to start a software company than a hardware company and have a lot of CapEx. So from very early on, I wanted to do this. But then what happened is, as like most people, came out of school, a lot of school debt, and I couldn't afford to start a company. My third job out of school, I got fired. It forced me to push down this path. And out of desperation, I started Sell It, which was originally focused on real estate. And this is 2004. So this is way before the iPhone. iPhone, I believe, was 2008. But the idea was you drive by a house, you want info on that house. There's nothing, the flyer box is empty. How do I get info? If I call the realtor, they're not going to answer. So you could text in using our service for info on the house, and then get a few text messages back of info, each 140 characters or 160 characters. And then you would get an MMS message, a picture of the house and all that. And then the realtor would get a lead. So that was our very first offering. And then very, very quickly, I realized I do not want to be pigeonholed in real estate. And I started a second offering called Coupon Zap, which was just general outbound CRMs. Coupon Zap changed its name to Sell It Studio, and that's what was used by Abercrombie and Fitch. Those were both from 2004. It was a much quicker cycle than Handwritten. We became profitable much quicker. We grew faster. But that company, a lot of those lessons I learned there, I now apply to Handwritten, such as design as a platform first. That would help growth. That was a big one. But what happened is when I built Sell It, about 2 years in, I moved it back to Chicago. I was in Arizona and I moved it to Chicago and I ran it from there. And I went to a digital technology trade show or something. I don't know, some goofy trade show in Chicago. And an investment banker came by my booth named Todd. And he was legit. He wasn't one of these guys trying to sell your business, your family business. Like there's a company out there called Generational Equity, and there's some shady ones out there. But sorry, Generational Equity, I'm sure you're fine. I don't want to. But this, focused more. I mean, this guy, his pedigree was legit. So what I did was, and actually I went down the path with Generational Equity too. It just wasn't a good match. So let me just say that, although they're quite good for many people. But I said to him, I said, gee, I'm very flattered you're interested in selling us 2 years in. We are nowhere near being sellable. And he said, oh, you will be. And for investment bankers, you think they're jerks, but this guy was the nicest guy ever. He's stayed in contact. And then what happened is we grew to about $5 million in revenue with 40% margins. So we're pumping out $2 million in profit a year. And I called him up and I said, I think it's time to sell, because there was a whole bunch of CTCA, like communications regulation and stuff that was making what we were doing harder. We weren't spamming, but we were getting accused of spamming, which didn't look good. And also there's a lot of competing technologies. There's push notifications and all the rest. So I said, gee, could you help us with that sell process? And he said, yeah. We ended up being the smallest deal they ever did, because $5 million is still very, very small. But he ran a process for us. And anybody in your listenership that is listening, listen closely. When you sell your company, do not sell to your customer that calls you and says, I want to buy you. Do not sell to your competition if they call you up and say, I want to buy you. Or if they do, if either of those two things happen, great. Call your investment banker and run a process. What a process is an auction. Not really an auction. It's like putting your house on the market. You want as many bids as possible, because your competitor probably will buy you, but probably for 10 cents on the dollar, 80 cents on the dollar, whatever it is, they're not going to offer you top dollar. So we ran a process. We packaged up our business. We put together all the financials. The investment banking firm went out and met with a bunch of people, different people. We had 3 bites. A company on the West Coast, a company in the Midwest, and a company on the East Coast. In the end, we ended up selling to the company in the Midwest. It was very close to where we were. It was in Detroit. We were in Chicago. It was a very simple, great cultural fit, all the rest. So it took about, I want to say 4 to 5 months for that process to go down. I will say two things. The process was so stressful, I ended up in the hospital. It literally wrenched my guts. I was in the hospital for like 4 days with just weird stomach issues. I was a bachelor at the time. One night I woke up in the middle of the night saying, "Oh, I don't feel good." Went to the hospital, and they were going to operate on me. It literally wrenched my guts. So try to have a little perspective when you go through that process and not get so emotionally attached. Number two, post-sale, you have what's called typically you have an earn-out period. And please let me know if I'm getting into too much detail.
No, this is great.
So you have an earn-out period. So the company will buy you. We got purchased in 2012. And they'll say, okay, we want you, the owner, to stick around for 2 years. And for the first year of that, it'll be performance-based as part of the sale. So some of the sale price will be held back, and it'll be, you've done great until now, but how are you going to do the year after we buy you? That's what they want to know. And then the second year, there was actually no performance involvement, but I had to stick around those 2 years. We knocked it out of the park year one. Year two, they used that as really the integration year because they knew I was going to fly the coop as soon as that year was over. So a couple things. Try to negotiate the shortest earn-out period you can. You will not want to, if you're an entrepreneur, you're not going to want to work for somebody else, especially somebody else that takes over your baby. And I'll talk about that in a second. Number two, think very hard about your salary during that earn-out period. Shoot for the fences. I did not shoot for the fences. I had a good salary for those 2 years, but I should have asked for a lot more because that discussion is kind of separate from the sale of the company discussion. So really try to shoot for the fences on your own personal salary during year two. Back to running the company. So year one after acquisition was very much, we ran individually still. We had our own office in Chicago. Year two, they opened up the company was called ePrize or Hello World. They changed their name. Now they're part of Merkle, if you know who they are.
Yep.
So ePrize Hello World had opened an office in Chicago. We moved into that office. They replaced me as head of mobile. And I had to watch the new head of mobile and the company run my division into the ground. The closest thing I can give an example of is, imagine you spend at this point, so 2004 to 2013, so 9 years of your life renovating and building a Corvette, 1962 cherry red Corvette. You spend all this time. The thing looks bomb when you're done. It just looks perfect. And then you hand that Corvette over. You put the Corvette up for sale in an auction, a lot of buyers of that Corvette. The guy that offers you top dollar just turns out to be your next door neighbor. Great, whatever. Convenient. You give him the Corvette. He then puts it on his front lawn. And over the course of the following year, you see him take a belt sander to it. The wheels fall off. The bumper rusts out. The engine block's destroyed. Everything is just freaking destroyed on that car. And you have to sit there and look at it every morning with your cup of coffee. That's what happened during year two of that earn-out process. And it is hard. I don't mean to sound like poor little rich boy, because you did okay during the sale, but it is very, very hard. And you have to have some emotional distance to what you build prior to sale. And you have to know that once it's not yours, it's not yours. And your employees are going to fly the coop. All my employees did. You're going to fly the coop, hopefully before your employees do, because it'll be hard to watch. But you really have to expect a difficult time, and it was difficult. So I don't know if I'm rambling, but the big thing is run a process. That's number one. Absolutely get an investment bank or a business broker if you're a smaller business, and run a process. Do not sell to the first guy that rings your door and says, "Hey, I want to buy your company."
No, I love that. Creating an auction is huge. We just exited a company that I acquired about 2 years ago. And yeah, probably one of the biggest takeaways, definitely agree with number one, creating that auction, creating that process was huge. We had an offer on the table and ended up rolling it into a process or an auction, and ended up with a way better buyer out the other side. So
Yeah.
definitely agree with that. Number two, I mean, the emotion and gut wrenching. I mean, it's awful. Just
Yeah.
that 4, 5, 6 month timeline, whatever it takes to actually exit, the ups, the downs, the day to day, it's awful. And I'm really sorry to hear about your hospital stint, but I'm not surprised.
No, that was
Right.
before I sold. That was during the selling process. I was just so stressed out about selling the company. I just ended up in the hospital. But
And
yeah,
I
it was
see that,
crazy.
like,
Literally, your gut's twisted. Literally,
yeah, I mean,
it was crazy.
it was a nightmare for me as I reflect on it, happening basically the last 6 months of last year. And that was one of multiple businesses, but it was, yeah, gut wrenching. I mean, that one business threw me off completely, and every other business I was just in a funk. Like, it was hard to see straight and to think straight. Yeah, gut wrenching is the right way to put it, for sure.
Well,
I can
congrats on
definitely
your sale
see
too.
I can definitely see how you ended up there. And yeah, thank you. Um, Luckily, I think by creating that auction, we were able to end up with a better buyer that was a fit longer term.
Yeah.
And that was a better fit. And it wasn't just all about the money. We ended
Yeah.
up getting really great terms, but probably accepted an offer for a little less cash, to get paid out faster,
Yeah.
less time. We didn't have an earnout. We didn't have an earnout at all. And um, and it was a really good thing for us and our customers. It was the right person. So definitely agree on those top two tips. And then earnout, yeah, man. I can't imagine the 1962 Corvette just getting hit with a belt sander. Man, that analogy is something, but it's so true. Um, Luckily, I'm not having to deal with that, but I can just imagine how awful that would be. I know how wrapped up my emotions were just during the sale. I couldn't imagine then actually giving away the keys to my baby, right? And then, like, literally seeing it get hit by a belt sander after, and being stuck there having to participate and
Yeah.
kind of watch it, but from the sidelines not being able to do anything. I can't imagine, man.
Yeah. I mean, when we sold to Hello World, it was really about, I mean, to your point, it ended up being the best cultural fit because I thought it would be a great home for my employees. And we had 25 or so employees, and I really wanted to find a good home for them. And I thought I did. Some of them did stick around, but a lot of them flew the coop. But yeah, the second year was super hard and it was hard on my employees because we had our own, we had very tight relationships with our customers. And they were, they also claimed, they probably sent an email to Abercrombie and Fitch and said, oh yeah, that's my customer. I have a relationship with them, but they're the big gorilla. We're the little company. So they got the Abercrombie and Fitch relationship, and my salespeople and account managers that were running that had to play second fiddle. And it really wasn't fair to them, but I was just like, I just got to get out of here. What am I supposed to do? We have to play nice with our new acquirers, and there was very much NIH, not invented here syndrome with them. There was not invented here with us. There was infighting and commission splits, and it was really hard. Additionally, I don't know what to do about this, but when we got acquired by Hello World or ePrize, which then became Hello World, which then became Merkle, what happened was we got acquired to be the icing on the cake of this agency. They had a very strong agency with no mobile component. So actually we were one of two mobile companies they acquired, and then they wanted to be acquired. So they got acquired by a private equity firm called Catterton Partners. And then Catterton was responsible for paying the earnout, and they didn't. And, they're a billion-dollar private equity, multi-billion-dollar private equity firm, and they didn't want to pay the earnout because Hello World ePrize wasn't hitting their numbers. But I could give two Fs about if ePrize is hitting their numbers. The deal was for Handwritten or Sell It to hit its numbers, which we did. And Catterton had to respect the contract that we had. So in the end, I had some very unpleasant words for Catterton, and I threatened, we were the only growing profitable section in ePrize. And I threatened to call all my clients and tell them what was going on so they'd all quit. And then you'd have nothing. And in the end, they paid us our earnout. But, when you're structuring your deal and you have a document, literally, people probably can't see it, but a 3-inch thick document to go through, make sure there's protections that in the case of an acquisition of the acquirer, that there's absolutely a bulletproof document there. So whoever acquires the company has to follow through.
Yeah, that's a great takeaway. Man, this is awesome. I think we could talk about this probably for hours. I really appreciate your insight on Sell It and also Handwritten. Definitely, guys, check out Handwritten. I think an easy opportunity for you guys to plug into your business. We're all marketers. We're all using Zapier. We're all using Integromat and all these automation platforms. So it'd be very easy for us to integrate with you and start using the service. So definitely, guys, check them out. And in wrapping this up, I wanted to ask David for a recommendation. I feel like at the end of every podcast, everybody asks like their podcast guests to recommend 3 books. I do something a little different. I'm an avid reader, but if a book sucks, I put it down. I don't continue reading it, and I don't feel bad. So I like to ask other entrepreneurs of the one book that has made the biggest impact on who you are, the way that you do business, and ultimately why, because I'm after those great books, not the okay, don't finish books.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the one book, and you've probably heard it quite a bit, is E-Myth by Michael Gerber. That book was recommended to me at my last company. It is an easy read and well worth it. He's, he has a follow-up to that, like E-Myth Revisited and all these other, but E-Myth by Michael Gerber, because what it really talks about is that old notion of work on your business, not work in your business. I'm still working in my business at Handwritten, but I'm trying very, very hard to work on it, not in it. So yeah, E-Myth.
Perfect. That's awesome. So we'll link you guys up in the show notes. Obviously, David, if somebody wants to reach out to you, what's the best place for them to do that?
David at handwritten.com, and that's HANDWRYTTEN. It's spelled a little funny, like lift or, LYFT. That's the best place. I recommend everybody try Handwritten. You can request a free samples kit. Just go to handwritten.com, click business. You'll get a whole samples kit. Or if you sign up and use code podcast, you have to sign up with the username and password. It won't work with Google, Facebook. But if you sign up and use code podcast, you'll get $5 in credit, which is enough to send one card.
Yeah, that's awesome. And like I said, everybody uses, all of our users use all these integration platforms. So it would be easy to play with it and get it all set up and see how you like the system. But go check it out. Thanks so much, David Wachs, for coming on. Really appreciate it. Thanks for sharing all your nuggets. Super appreciate it. And everybody, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Show Me the Nuggets. Adios.
Thanks for tuning in to Show Me the Nuggets. If you've been enjoying the podcast and find our content helpful, please visit our Apple Podcast page, hit the subscribe button, and leave us a review. Joe and the whole team have been working hard to bring more value to the show. Your feedback will go a long way in helping us make the show better and reach a wider audience.